All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm glad to have you all here and to discuss some, I put in quotes, expanded tarot topics. But I want to do a quick introduction just to tell everybody who's here participating. And I'll just say a little bit about each person. So we have Kate from Daily Tarot Girl, and I'll put all of their YouTube channel links in this video in the description so that you can go and check out more of their videos. And so each of us has a channel. And so Kate's channel, it's on tarot. She does tarot readings. And I've been really enjoying your deep dive videos. They're really, really good. I watched the chariot one. I loved it. You'll go into detail about symbols and things that I never even thought of. You were talking about the chariot and how it's not moving on the RWS system. And I thought, oh, I never thought about that. And how the stars align on the belt. So that's really good. I really pick up a lot of information from your channel. So thank you for making those.
Oh, thanks. That's good to hear. Thank you.
And then we have Aurora from Lavender, Hazelwood, Witches. You added witches to your name there.
I did. It's both Lavender, Hazelwood, still on Instagram, and then Lavender, Hazelwood, Witches on YouTube.
Cool. And so, yeah, you have a variety of topics from spells to rituals to tarot. And you also talk about a lot of personal things in your life. And so it's really a really good channel and great video quality as well. So
you were the inspiration for that.
But you're doing great. I really enjoy it. And then Mitchel, we have Mitchel Osborne here, who he talks about so many different things on the psychic side, on the astrology side, the tarot side. And I was looking at your Instagram. You won an award. What was the award about? Because I saw that there was an award there, but I
it's Tony Poulet's or Tony Savory now. Tony Savory World Divination Association. I've been on a few of their lives over the last year and a half because they've done a lot since the pandemic. And then she has their platform has a teachable platform. So I did dream interpretation and animal communication. So those are the two things on that platform. And it was a fun thing. It was one of those things where you're nominated. I'm like, okay, great. And then a month later, they're like, you won. I was like, oh, okay.
Awesome.
So I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take the little symbol and put it up there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Congratulations, and congratulations on the job.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah. This is my first week in a new role after 18 years in the exact same position.
Oh, my goodness.
So
that's exciting.
Expanded a little bit.
That's exciting. So just to give everyone an idea of what we're going to be talking about here, I thought that this video would focus on topics that I hear coming up in tarot, but I don't know if we go into detail as much. Sometimes we do, but maybe separate from tarot, and we don't really relate the two. And maybe they're not even really related as much as I would like, because I just love these different topics that we'll discuss here. But I think that it's just really something that I see a lot, but it may be on someone's channel and they may specialize in talking about certain areas, such as maybe astral travel or extraterrestrial experiences, or things that maybe go deeper into more of a metaphysical realm. And I am interested in that, but I have been lately connecting some of these things to tarot and thinking, how do these things connect? And is there any reason to think that they do really? And I just find it fascinating. I've always found those topics fascinating. I always thought, okay, well, maybe one day I'll make a separate YouTube channel where I specifically talk about those things. But I wanted to get more feedback on it. I wanted to hear some of your experiences with these things. And the first question that I had that I wanted to throw out there was, what are some of the topics that you find that come up in tarot that you're really interested in, and you see kind of a connection with tarot, but haven't really seen it explored a lot? So mine was maybe on the extraterrestrial side. And I was wondering what other ones you had out there. And anyone can chime in.
So I'm definitely I love exploring the extraterrestrial stuff. We've chatted offline, and I bought books because you and Kate had done a video, and I'm trying to think. A lot of times in readings or working with the cards, I just feel like sometimes the clients are getting influenced by off-planetary beings, and it just feels like the cards can kind of lead me in that direction. One interesting thing is for me is when I do animal communication or when I do mediumship, my hand with the cards, just kind of metaphorically, I put the cards down. So I hardly ever use cards when I'm doing mediumship, connecting with, you know, those who've crossed over or just non-body beings, and then with animals. And I often thought, why does that happen just naturally for me? Because I love tarot, and I love using tarot in any way I can. And the only thing I think my human brain kind of gave me a little idea, maybe why, was that, you know, and it's funny because Michelle Welsh has been recently talking about there is no veil, but it's like the cards are cardboard and they're material in this world, and they don't cross through the veil. I feel like their energy does, but I don't know that the cards do. So it makes me feel like I'm just utilizing either symbols, archetypes, or just feelings once I go, quote, beyond the veil. And the animals, when I work with them, I feel like I'm on the other side of the veil more than not. So that's something that I found.
I love that you brought up animal communication, Mitchell. All about
that. I'm listening to your dog.
Oh, you can hear him? Ah, sorry.
No, don't worry about it. We love it.
Oh, never mind. I don't know what to say. I feel embarrassed.
Oh, okay. No, I remember. And one of the reasons why I invite you here is because I know that at one point, when we had our discussion, you were talking about death and how death is something that people, they shy away from when it comes to really looking at it in certain ways. It's kind of on the surface level and not really exploring it in a deeper way. Do you find that in tarot in any way it helps people? There are some ways that it's maybe helped you to in that area? Or
you know, I used a card. I was having a really hard time. I made a video about it. But my cat Jack had cancer and was not doing well, and I was sort of going back and forth between, well, you know, do I help him go? You know, he still has some life in him, but like, at what point is too much? Because his mouth was bleeding every time he ate. He had a tumor in his neck, which was growing, so it was going to cut off, you know, his airway, or it could burst. You know, all kinds of really disgusting things. But, you know, being in the human body and having the attachments that we do, it's hard to let go of your loved ones, your animals, your whoever. And so I went to the cards and I pulled the the two of wands, I think it was, which was just a card of choice, right? And it helped me to look deeper into, okay, there's a choice here that I have to make, and I'm struggling hard. And I understand that the struggle, you know, is because I'm fearing, I'm scared. I don't want to let him go. But I knew what the answer was. I just didn't want to go there. And so, you know, I went to the card, and then I went to my mom and was like, what's your input? And then I went to Jack and I was like, what's your input? And he was like, whatever. I mean, you know, I'll be here, but like, it's okay. You know, like you can go, you can let me go. And I realized how much of this struggle was literally my own personal issues coming up and had nothing to do with what Jack wanted or what spirit was telling me, which was basically like, it's time for him to go, you know, like,
yeah,
he's in pain and he's having a hard time. And so then finding, you know, sort of like then appealing to, okay, spirit, whoever, you know, like the greater whatever that is out there, and saying, I don't know how to do this by myself. Can you please help? Because I can't, I don't know how to get out of my own way here.
Mhm.
So it helped me to sort of take an action and be like, okay, let me call the vets who are going to come to my house and do this thing, euthanize him. And then it was out of my hands once I made that phone call. It was like, okay, I don't have to struggle with this. I don't have to deal with this. But the card actually got me there to actually being able to make this choice,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
just to let you know, I do know the pain. That is actually me and Bartolomeo on the Eight of Cups from Jamie Sawyer's Pocket of Peers Tarot. And it's Pisces, that's got the Hermit's lamp. But this card was made, the deck was out there, and Bartolomeo, I was on a call with a client and I heard a meow, and then I got done with the client, and it was a cat call. I mean, it was a cat client, and I went into the kitchen, and he was dropped over. It was 63 minutes of sheer hell getting him to the vet, and then basically saying, this is called fetal aortic thrombosis, which is like a blood clot comes off, and it lays him out. So I know that struggle, and the thing that I do with clients a lot of times, and it's, I read in layers a lot of ways, and a lot of times I'll say, okay, this is our human side. We don't want to let him go. We're struggling. And I said, just see if you can take your soul, your spirit, whatever, up just a little higher and look down from that perspective and see what it looks like, on a soul level, on a soul contract. And I, for 2 days, I could barely get past the pain of Bart. And I did an NLP technique of, graying out the image and running it forward and backwards and turning down the volume, because he was in a lot of physical pain. So he's a lot of meowing. And within minutes, I was able to then get beyond the last hour of trauma and then get back to just, him laying in that chair back there, meditating on my belly with me. And then I knew instantly that card and him would start working in my business. And since February 9th of this year, I've had so many clients in a similar situation that you are in, connecting, the pain and also using the NLP technique to kind of move past some of that last minute trauma stuff. So that's been a practice of just kind of, how does it look from a soul level? And then I was able to come back down to the human body and go, okay, let me just deal with this pain and then move forward.
Yeah, because it's tricky territory, having this experience, the physical experience, and letting go of it and moving into whatever it is that you believe, on the other side. And I think I think as much help as we can get is important, because it's sensitive territory,
Absolutely. And yeah, I know, like, a lot of people, they remember their loved ones that have passed away, and I think that for those of us that remember animals, I think that there's also a special sort of feeling that we get, and a special connection that we have as well. I came back from Mexico from Day of the Dead not too long ago, and they have their celebration where they honor their ancestors that have passed away, and on that day they remember them, and they put up altars and ways of really connecting. And I find that it's something that I think as a group, when they do that as a group, it kind of feels like a support system in that whole area of dealing with death. And I think a lot of times we go through it individually, and we don't really have a lot of people to talk to about it, and it can be a very isolating thing. And I found that working with tarot sometimes can help us figure out what direction to really look in when we don't have a really place to go to really discuss some of the things that might be going on internally, and to have an outlet of, okay, well, what direction where do I even start with this? And like you said, you pulled the two of wands, and it gave you that idea of, okay, I don't really know where to start, but I have some options, and just start thinking about what those options are, at least, and coming up with a couple of things that you could do here. And so to just get that ball rolling, get the action started, I think that was really interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And
Yes.
yeah, I remember when that happened, and yeah, it's
yeah,
really, yeah.
it's hard. you know, like being, I don't know, just being in these bodies and like having to navigate this world and you know, hope that you're making the right choices, and also like acknowledging that living is painful, you know, and the more we resist that, the harder life is actually. You know, and like being like, okay, this is painful. I know this too will pass, because those are the cycles of life. So, you know, how can I help myself be in a place of less resistance? And I think the cards help that, because they send us messages, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely.
I believe it's the Buddhist philosophy that says there is suffering, but there's a whole lot of optional suffering that we don't have to put ourselves through if we don't want to. But there's suffering, so
Oh, yeah.
there's suffering just being in this body.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned you know, being in the physical body and how that experience can be difficult. And I was sharing some books with Kate, and one of them was it was a book on it's a multi-dimensional sort of extraterrestrial group called the Arcturians. And I've read several books on this group. And one of the things that they mention, and I found this to be consistent through all the books that I've read on them. And the thing that they mention is that they don't like to step down in vibration to Earth, because Earth has a lot of karma, it has a lot of heavy energy, and they want people to really try to increase their vibration. And that's one of the things that, you know, I've read that over and over again: raise your vibration, raise your frequency. But I never really understood, okay, what people can say that, but what exactly do you guys feel that is, like raising vibration? Because I feel like I'm a very like low energetic, sort of not in a bad way, but just kind of a mellow person. And so when I think of vibration, sometimes I think, oh, well, do I have to be like super happy all the time or super excited all the time? Is that raising your vibration, or is it just more, what is it? I'm curious about that.
Well, it's funny because, and I feel like Kate wants to say something. Jump in, Kate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I did want to say something, but my cat has discovered my camera. No.
Oh, no.
Oh, here she is.
Aww. Oh my gosh, she's beautiful.
She's in a bad mood right now because I won't let her crawl all over my camera. When she finds my camera, she likes to rub her cheeks on like the microphone and lens and stuff. Like,
what's that? She's doing that. What is it? A&R? What's that? The noise? ASMR. She's probably feeling that vibration.
So I've just been listening to you guys talk and your stories, and what strikes me as interesting is that we've all kind of used tarot as a way to integrate the spiritual with the physical, and as a way to kind of bring that spiritual energy down into our physical lives and kind of help us deal with some of the challenges that we have on the physical plane. And for me, tarot has it was kind of like a portal. Like when I discovered tarot, I started studying tarot, and then that just like opened the floodgates to all these other kind of metaphysical topics. And I became interested in like past lives, extraterrestrials, you know, channeling, all those other kind of metaphysical things. And I think that's just, I think when I started studying tarot, it helped me kind of expand my consciousness and my horizons a little bit. And I think that getting interested in those things is sort of a natural thing that happens when you start to kind of expand your consciousness and ask some of those deeper questions. But to answer your question, Will, about what does it mean to raise your vibration? This is something I've been thinking too. And I know I can tell when I'm in like a higher vibrational state. And sometimes it feels like it's not just about being happy, but it's almost about feeling a sense of, and this is going to sound bad, but like it's almost about like kind of detaching, but not in like a cold sociopathic kind of way, but like detaching from needing things to be a certain way and kind of having a certain kind of trust. It makes me think of the tarot card, the Star, about kind of like letting go and having a sense of trust and not being super attached to any particular outcome. And I feel like when I'm in that state, I'm not necessarily like happy, but I feel like I'm less heavy, like I'm not as bogged down, like it's freeing, and it's kind of gives you sort of more of a buoyant kind of light feeling. And so I think for me, that's what that means to be in a high vibration. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's like, going with whatever's in front of you instead of resisting, removing the resistance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I studied mediumship, which was the hardest thing I've ever done, because I just felt so all over the place. But one of the things that we talk about in that is kind of meeting them, whoever you're connecting with, and raising your vibration to meet them, and it's almost like a different frequency. And it's like, if you think of one of the references I say is like a piano, the low keys are no more important than the high keys, but you tend to live in the middle because it's a little more pleasing to you sometimes. But for me, it's like anytime I've worked with off-planet, non-physical beings, again, in the beginning, I was like, I want to see a ghost, I want to see an alien, I want to see all this. And I think just where I was from a child, and naturally they're all like, it's so, we don't, we're here. So why do I have to lower myself down into that place when you can hear me and you can see me in your mind's eye? So, that's one of the things when I was thinking about this time together, is like, I've not seen an alien, but in my mind, oh my gosh, I have a ton of them that I work with on a regular basis. And the other thing is, anytime I'm like, do you want me to call you something? They always kind of laugh and go, okay, you can call me this, because it's like, I don't really have a name. It's just a vibration. And I've had so many different quote unquote names. Which one do you want to call me? The one I had last year's lifetime, whatever.
Yeah.
But it is interesting.
Yeah, I've read about that too, how people they'll channel or they'll contact, and it's like they ask these questions, and then whatever they're in contact with is just like, okay, if I have to, I'll go ahead and put myself into that category. Now it makes a lot of sense, because I've also read that the earth is of course protected, and a lot of beings that are more service to other oriented, they are not, they have a, from what I've heard, they have this law of non-interference. And so Earth is basically a zone where, okay, whatever is going on here, we need to let it play out. There are other service to self beings that don't care about that. And, but of course, the Earth is protected, and there's really a limit to what they can do to interfere. But I have heard that, and I don't know if you guys have heard this, but there are mainly 3 groups of service to self that have sort of been allowed to interfere. And this happened around the time of like the 40s, when we started testing nuclear weapons and things like that. They were given access. And one of those were this group right here, the grays. I don't know if you can, if that'll focus. So there's the short grays right here. And then there are the tall grays.
What deck is that?
This is the Martian Oracle.
Ooh,
I didn't realize there were 2 different kinds of grays.
Yeah, so there's the shorter ones are very much more robotic. They kind of are like worker bees. They don't really have a personality. The taller ones are a little bit more intense. They have more of, they're more in control, and they are, from what I've read, are kind of telling the shorter ones what to do in their experiments. Now, they are working under the umbrella of a race called the Draconians, which there are 2 types. There's the reptilians, and then there's the Draconians. So you have the reptilians, which are, they work kind of side by side in union with this other group, the Alpha Draconians. And so the Alpha Draconians, so they have different agendas. From what I've heard, the small grays and the tall grays, they were a very technologically advanced civilization. They sort of left their spirituality behind, and they were allowed to sort of intervene here to kind of pick up some of that through hybridization and things like that, and other experiments. And so they were allowed that because you cannot shift into 5th and 6th dimensional frequency if you are so much focused on tech. and you lose a certain part of your essence, in a sense. And so they lost that. They're trying to integrate that back into themselves so that they can shift. That's the story that I've been hearing over and over again, kind of the theme playing out. And so they've been allowed to do that. The Draconians, on the other hand, are very much in the background. They're a much older species that have been here in the background. And it said that, you know, the star system that they come from, it said that they were actually not even a part of our universe. They were ejected from a separate universe, ended up in a star system, and then they came here to Earth a long time ago, even before, you know, during, you know, many years ago. And they just kind of been in the background, because what they do is they feed off of manipulating and manipulating energy. So negative, positive and negative energy, kind of that mixture of disharmony and disunity. They play in the background off of that, and they like that. That's their thing. They enjoy watching that. It's kind of a drama. They get bored otherwise, and they really do feed off of this. And so they are willing to work with, you know, other beings that come here and kind of allow them access, because they are the ones that really do control and hold the power in these subterranean areas. And so they the thing about the short and the tall grays is that when they came here, they were mainly, I think, some fifth dimensional, you know, there are some fifth dimensional ones that have, because you can't think of them all in one category. Just like we have different personalities, there are different, in these groups, there are different beings that will be on a higher frequency, a higher vibration. So I'm not talking, I don't want to generalize them, in other words, but mainly they were third dimensional. They were a lower vibration. But when they came to Earth, one of the things about Earth is Earth has a very unique karmic system, that when you come here, the karma, you are subject to it. So not long ago, and one of the reasons why I guess we don't hear as much about them as you know, they're kind of falling, and you know, I don't hear as much on the side of the grays. It's more of this interdimensional thing that I'm hearing a lot more lately. But the grays used to really be in the spotlight, but they built up a lot of karma. They got, from what I read, they got sick. They had to go off planet for some time to heal, because they, you know, interfering in Earth, you're going to build some karma because you're doing things that you're not supposed to do. It's not really something that's allowed when you interfere here. Even though they were given access, they still were subject to some of the laws and the rules that we have. You know, their aircraft would malfunction and crash and things like that. They would struggle like we do. So it is, you know, I bring them up because I feel like a lot of times we, you know, as human beings, we don't really give ourselves that credit that of just being on this planet and going through the things that we go through without that connection. And it's very difficult to do that. And I think that, you know, if we do open ourselves up to a more spiritual side, that just to give it a try, even if we're not really sure about it, I think that's taking steps over time during like meditations and just to open up and connect. I think that we may see changes in our frequency, our vibration, the way that we interact with others, and, you know, our service to others, and just allowing that in. Because the reason, and then when I asked that question about frequency and, you know, what is that, I've been thinking about it lately, and I've been thinking, okay, well, is it something that's really difficult to have to sit in meditation for hours and hours and hours to raise my vibrations, raise my frequency? And then I was reading something lately where it said, okay, well, you don't really have to, you know, do anything so specific. It's your intent. And that really helped me, because I felt like, okay, well, if my intent is to connect, even that intention, the more you make that intention to connect with your internal light. So what's within you, your you know, past lifetimes, your past experiences, that was something that I felt like, yes, I can do that. I can at least have that intention, even if I'm like in my meditation, like somewhere totally else. My intention was to connect. And I think that really helped, because a lot of times with everything going on, I just find it hard to like have this super happy vibration. It's just, I am where I am, you know, you got bills, you've got worries and problems. And that was something that was just helpful to me.
I think we underestimate the power of intention and like how powerful it can be. And it's probably more powerful, like what your intention is probably going to have more of an effect than, like you said, doing specific meditations or exercises or something like that. Yeah, so I think I'm glad that you said that, because I think that's kind of the key, I think.
Well, and I absolutely know I can fly. I know I can fly, but I feel like I'm living in a co-created universe world that doesn't believe I can.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's like I know I can fly. I wake up some mornings, and not just because I had a dream about it, but I wake up and I'm like, I know I can fly. But just like, do I believe the earth was flat at one point? Well, if enough people believed it, that was the reality. And then probably one day someone, it's just like breaking the 4-minute mile. No one could break the 4-minute mile. And finally one person broke the 4-minute mile. And shortly after that, boom, 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 boom. So many people broke it because they thought and believed that they could.
Yeah. You know,
And then
actually,
another,
oh no, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
and another thing I've said in meditations connecting with those off planets, and of course after I read the one book you guys turned me on to, you know, I was connecting with so many people, and every once in a while I'm just laying there like, what are we going to do today? And they're like, we just need you just to sit here so we can adjust you and your vibration to us, because we're coming down closer to you, but we don't want to have to do this every time. And sometimes I sit there and my whole body is just like vibrating. And I was like, okay, this is really weird. I'm open to it. I feel very protected because I have my gatekeepers and whatever you want to call them. And sometimes I feel like they're just raising my vibration up. And it's like, okay, they're making it so that I can go 100 miles an hour in the car and it not fall apart. They're making it so that the car is smooth enough. You know, I'm now a Tesla that can go 120, and it's just like you can hold a glass of wine and nothing's wrong with it. Or my little Toyota Corolla from a couple years ago at 70, it would have been falling apart. And it just feels like that's what they're doing for me. And the other thing that I find, a lot of readings, and I do have some men and some straight men, but I have a lot of their wives, and more men are not able to deal with the emotional crap that's going on, because I don't think they can stuff it. I don't think, because they could, years ago, it was easier to ignore the emotions that they're feeling, where now the planet's vibration is higher and they're having a difficult time going, ooh, how do I deal with that?
You brought up so many things there that actually, no, it's good. Actually, so many things that I actually Wednesday was reading about a lot of those specific things. But the last thing that you just mentioned about the planet and the vibration of the planet. So Earth, okay, when we think about Earth and we think about like people, there's a way that Earth can increase in vibration. Whereas if we don't, I guess we're not on the same page, we don't really see it and we have a difficult time dealing with it. But Earth, just as a planet, the animals, the trees, everything, you know, there's a shift that can happen there. And if you are, like you said, guys that are not really willing to deal with that, their emotions, or really willing to heal and balance in certain ways, it's hard to really see that. And you kind of get stuck in a certain state. So that was one thing that I was mentioning. And then the other thing is when you were talking about the race and how you know, people couldn't break the 4-minute mile, and you know, after everyone saw that, then all of a sudden you get this flood of people that believe in that.
Belief.
Yeah, and I was reading the other day, actually, I think it was Wednesday, about collective consciousness and unity consciousness. And collective consciousness has been, it's just what everybody believes. It's just out there, the pool of what everyone believes, all the laws, all the rules, everything. And I read that it gets kind of polluted with things that just aren't true. It's kind of like a pyramid. You have a bunch of things that are not true on the bottom that are built up over the years. And then that truth of what we really can do, like you said, you know, flying or whatever, that truth of what we really can do is up there at the top, but it's buried between everything you have to mentally get through, because it's what we actually believe as a society. And so it's hard to break through that and get through all the levels, but it's there. And that's the unity consciousness. The unity consciousness is what, as a whole, is the actual truth for, you know, everything in existence. And that's the pure essence of what actually is truth, what actually is factual, you know, what actually, you know, we are. And, you know, whether it's, you know, we're telepathic, or whether we are able to, you know, develop certain abilities, psychic abilities, those kinds of things. If the collective consciousness puts up barriers to what you can and can't do, it's hard for a lot of people to say, well, everybody believes that we can't, use telepathy. When everything that I've read from any of these other groups that I've shown you, even the Greys, which are third dimensional, are masters of telepathy. They don't really talk, and they see us talking, they're like, okay, I'll talk to you, if I have to use words. That's like the hard way, but okay. But yeah, so yeah, absolutely. You brought up a lot of good points there.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of, cultural or world agreements about the laws that we exist in that we don't question. And, and sort of circling back to what you said, Mitchell, about men and not having a hard time holding the emotional stuff. I found that really fascinating because, something that I've started educating myself on is the deep feminine and where that comes into play. And what I'm recognizing is like, there's so many parts of myself as a woman that I've like cut off, that I've sort of disassociated from or not believed in, or just sort of like erased my experience. I'm sure everybody on the, this call can relate to that in some way. I'm just starting to recognize and give credence to the things inside of me that are more feminine based, and starting to look at those and be like, how do these things serve me? How does the fact that sometimes I can actually like feel what other people are feeling, like there are points I can't control it, but there are points where I'm like, I'm having a feeling right now. This is not mine. This is somebody else's, and being able to pinpoint that and then have it being corroborated back. So taking those kinds of experiences and being like, okay, this is true. And instead of brushing it off and being like, oh, it's kind of like a weird one-time thing, it's like, no, how do I actually go in and cultivate and develop this that is already there by nature? It's just not looked at as something that is reliable or as scientific or as, I guess, I don't know, something you can trust, or it's like looking at those sort of more metaphysical things that we experience as humans, whether you are, whatever gender you are, and using them. And because once we do that and we make ourselves whole, we are able to handle a lot more, we are able to sort of engage in things that used to make us uncomfortable, all the taboo things that like maybe didn't work for you because you believed that, if you're of male essence, you are supposed to act like this. If you're of female essence, you're supposed to act like this. And, sort of like mixing that up and creating a life that is more yours than theirs, whoever their, culture or the 1% or whatever, whatever you believe in. But like, but the things that have been imposed on us is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, were you going to say something, Kate? I thought maybe you were. No. Okay. No problem. Okay. So, yeah, and I think you brought up remembering. And so one of the topics that Kate and I discussed in one of our first videos, we were talking about the idea of people that have had many lifetimes and people that maybe are more, I guess, new, like their first incarnation here on Earth, or their first experience, and maybe others that have had lifetimes in other parts of the galaxy, other parts of our universe, and then they are seeded here. And so this card right here is called Starseed. And it's about remembering. It's about remembering some of the things that were familiar to us in other lifetimes or in other experiences. And I think that, of course, when you come to Earth, you forget all this stuff. You forget everything that was beyond. I think some people remember a little bit more than others. I think that there are levels of that. I think that when some people come through and they're here, for some reason they have some closer connection to what was before, whatever lifetime before. But at any rate, the goal is to really remember, and the obstacle is twofold, really. It is, getting past the collective consciousness, like I mentioned, and also it is, well, actually three things. It is also duality, which is perpetuated by, like I said, Draconians, duality. They pit us against each other. That separation also is the opposite of unity consciousness, and that is also a barrier to remembering. The other thing is systems, capitalist systems, or systems that keep you on a treadmill of work and a treadmill of, okay, I can't go inward because I got this, and this to do. So there are tools that are used to really block the people that are seated from waking up and remembering certain things. So because when you do that, it's a very powerful thing, a very powerful experience. And I think people are at different stages of it, but accepting it, like you were saying, Aurora, accepting the fact that, okay, yeah, I am feeling someone else's feelings, and really honoring that that's what that is, and believing that that's what that is, without the doubt of the collective thoughts on that. Because even as I say that, there could be people thinking, oh yeah, whatever, but you have to get past that, right? You have to get past that, because that's a barrier, and it is the external validation of other people and their expectations that can limit what we do in the present, and even in perpetuating out into the future, because we hold to that collective, not just because that's the norm, but because also, as people, it's a way to feel validated. Like I said, a way to feel like, okay, yeah, I am what I'm supposed to be. But really, when what you're supposed to be lies within that truth. It's very different from what the world might be telling you you're supposed to be. Like Mitchell was mentioning. So yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, so I'm learning a lot here.
I love what you said about how there's so many systems in place that kind of get in our way between exploring consciousness and becoming more aware of these things. Because Melina.
She's like, you're right. Yeah.
Oh, look at her, she's biting me. She is the bitiest cat. She just hissed. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I love her.
Such a bitch. I've never had a cat that was such a bitch like her. She bites me all the time. She hisses, and she's always been like that. That's just like, there's nothing wrong. It's just like, that's her personality. Anyways, I thought that was really interesting, what you said about kind of acknowledging how there is a lot of systems, like just the capitalist system that keeps us busy and working and paying bills and stuff like that. I just wanted to kind of chime in and say I totally kind of resonated with that. And there was something I was gonna, I wanted to share something that I've kind of discovered recently that has really helped me. I don't know if I would say raise my vibration, but sort of, it's kind of helped me along those lines. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Hemi, is it Hemisync? Yeah, Hemisync. Have you ever heard of Robert Monroe? The Monroe Institute. Yeah. Okay, Mitchell, you're nodding. The
booth.
Oh, yes, I have heard of this.
Yes, yeah. So it's a place you go, you can do courses there, and it's basically, it teaches you how to leave your body and astral travel, astral project, and explore other dimensions. And then go back to your body afterwards. I've always wanted to, I think it's in Virginia or so, it's somewhere in the States, and I've always wanted to do the program, but it's far away. And I discovered that they actually have an audio program that you can buy and listen to these, they're basically guided meditations. And I think there's like 7 or 8 CDs, and each CD or album has like 6 or 7 different meditations. And the idea is that you work through it sequentially. So you start with the first one and you do the first meditation as many times as you need until you're like comfortable with it. And each meditation teaches you like a different technique. So I think the first one was basically just like a relaxation technique. The second or third one was about getting a sense of your aura and creating this kind of like energy balloon around yourself. And that's as far as I've gotten. So I've been listening to them. Well, when I first started, I was doing it like every day, and now I'm doing it like a couple times a week. But I will listen to a meditation like quite a few times, and then I'm like, okay, now I've got the gist of it. I can move on to the next one. So I haven't gotten very far, but it's been really amazing. I've had like a lot of lucid dreams since I've started working with those Hemi sync tapes. Had a lot of lucid dreams. And it's just been really amazing. I mean, I'm nowhere near being able to astral project yet, but it's putting me on the path towards that, I think. And they've just been really amazing at helping me kind of reconnect with my soul and my kind of energy. Because I think I was a little bit disconnected. I feel like since COVID, I've kind of gotten a little bit sidetracked and a little bit disconnected. And so it's kind of helping me reconnect. But I just wanted to share that resource with you guys to see if you've tried it, if you've heard of it, but it's pretty amazing. I'm really liking it.
Oh, okay. So Hemi sync, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I have to look into that.
And it's funny because I started meditating with binaural beats a few years ago. And there were times when I literally would come out of it like, okay, I have to stop that for a while. It was almost distraught. It was almost distressing and distraught me. And then I would go back to just some regular stuff for a little while, and then I would feel the push to go back in. And I really feel like for some reason they helped me, quote unquote, raise my vibration. And it's funny because I think of when you're talking about feeling people's energies, it's almost like, like a tuning fork. If you're this tuning fork and you're not vibrating, and then here's, the same person and you move close to them, it's like you start picking up on them. And in my mind, I think, how can I be the dominant vibration? Or how can I be the one that when I enter the room, that I'm not allowing them to vibrate me? And I think this goes back to what Will was saying about, I'm a pretty happy person. I'm a pretty, I love life, but I also, I eat, I poop, I have to crap and wipe my ass just like everybody else, which is another system that I think we have to fall into, not a man-made one, but a conscious-made one of that. Because I do believe there are people that do not eat, that they may not even drink water, that their systems just operate here. But it's like, how can I walk into that room? And it's a goal of mine on a daily basis to raise my vibration for the highest good and greatest growth of all around me. And, I have so many people that will just meet me and they're like, well, hello, sunshine. And I find it funny that they'll say the word sunshine, because it's like, that's what I don't think I'm a sunshiny person, but it's like, that's something that comes out of their mouth a lot of times. And if it's because the practice that I do and my intention that, as I walk through, spreading fairy dust everywhere I go, rather than picking up on your vibration, because when I do get, like you said, Aurora, it's like, when I get that feeling, I'm like, this is not mine. I literally say, all right, if this is my shit, pardon my language, let me deal with it. Because I'm not afraid to step up to the plate and do whatever, if it's shadow work. But if it's not, I let it go back to whoever with love and light, however you want to put it. And usually within minutes, I'm like, okay, it's gone. And if it's not gone, then I say, okay, what's the work that I have to do here? Because it's not gone yet. Or I'll post. And sometimes just after I post, hey, if you're feeling like this right now, I'm feeling it with you. And sometimes I hit send on the post and 10 minutes later, it's gone, it's done. So it's almost like I just needed to get rid of it, take the trash out.
Interesting. And also, I just want to address the sunshiny vibe that you're talking about. Sometimes you can smile, but be feeling something very different underneath. And so like sort of looking at somebody or taking an energy imprint of somebody, something is really what all of us do all the time anyway, though we're not really conscious of it because we're so distracted by the physical stuff that's around us, right? But if we really sit and, you know, if I look at you, Mitchell, I'm like, yeah, sunshine, basically, like you could sit there, not even smile, and I can feel your energy and be like, yeah, I get that. I get that sunshiny feeling, you know? Whereas like Will is a bit more down to earth, you know, like he has a more like a richer, like earthier feel about him. You know, it's more dense, and not in a bad way. I just mean it's like richer, you know. And Kate feels like she has more air to her. It's not sunshiny, it's not airy per se, but like if I'm just comparing the energy imprints I'm getting from everybody on this call, I'm like, yeah, everybody has a slightly different signature, name, whatever, you know, like so it's just finding like the labels or the words that, you know, I guess describe energy, because that's kind of the hardest thing to do at times, right? Is like be like, okay, I'm feeling this thing, what is the word that matches it, or what's the closest thing I can, how can I describe this well enough so that it can be communicated? Because sometimes it's just hard to communicate what it is that you're feeling, you know, like the energy you're feeling. Which, you know, the cards help with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, you know, I was doing a reading the other day and I realized that, yeah, you know, this conversation that I was having, it was facilitated in such a beautiful way through using the cards. And just because, you know, if you're looking at all of the external information and all the details without really seeing the images, there are things that I probably would have never brought up or probably never would have even thought of. And I found that there was so much value in that. And I, you know, after doing the reading, I realized, you know what, I appreciate that, because I think there were some things that needed to be addressed and that would have never been a part of the topic. So that's one of the ways, that's one of the beautiful things that I think of when I use tarot. It just helps me to really balance that out. And we were talking about, you know, guys and sometimes not being able to deal with the emotional side. And that's one of the things that's really helped me to deal with that and to work through complex emotions. And, you know, when I am feeling someone else's emotions or something like that, I can go to tarot and just kind of think about, process it in a different way. So yeah, so let me just look here and see, because we got about 10 minutes, well, actually about 8 minutes. But I wanted to see if there was anything here, because I had some questions. But I wanted to take a look here and just discuss one last thing. I don't want to even end this meeting. It's such a good meeting. I'm like, why did I limit this to an hour? I should have kept you guys here for like 3.
I wanted to ask if anyone has successfully communicated with extraterrestrial beings.
So like for me, I haven't, but I actually feel drawn to the Arcturians, and that's why I've been bringing them up a lot. And that's kind of why I've been reading. I have a book right here on the Arcturians right here that I was reading, and I was just thinking about it when Mitchell mentioned the beats, because literally when you mentioned the beats, I was just reading about that, because the Arcturians gave this guy that I'm reading about in this book some vibrational beats, and he said, I find it interesting that many people have reported similar reactions as I did. Some, they say love it, and some say they find it difficult to listen to. And you were talking about that. And he even said that even today, when I listen to the piece, there are times when I'm drawn into it and transported to expanded states of mind and body. And then there are times when I turn the thing off just after a minute or two, because he's in different states or different frequencies. And when he listens to it, he just gets different things. But, you know, it's like I'll get, as I'm connecting with this group, they're interdimensional, but as I'm connecting with them, I find that they want to be a part of the conversation. I feel like they've been a part of a lot of my things that I've talked about on my channel. I feel like they've been there. I just haven't recognized it. And it's been hard for me to verbalize that and to admit that and to talk about that. And that's one of the reasons why I want to have this discussion, because there are things that I'm finding that I don't really feel comfortable because of that collective consciousness. that barrier to really discussing these things that I just have not. I've backed off, and I feel like if the more everyone else is open, the more these things will come out and the more information we'll get about these different things, because I really feel connected to this group. I feel connected to their energy. I feel connected to, you know, what they really are all about. And it's happened before in the past. Let me show you something here real quick. So, you know, I started getting into the thought system not too long ago, but one of the things that Aleister Crowley did was in, not in his book, but in Madame, I think it's Blavatsky, she wrote I think The Voice of Science. I can't remember which book it was, but in the beginning of the book, in the preface, he wrote some information. And in that, I think on the next page, he took one page and he drew this. He drew this right here. And he didn't say anything about it. He just drew it in her book. And I know that he was channeling. I know that he was in contact with certain things. And I looked at that and I was like, what is that? And I was like, it doesn't, you know, and because I've been studying these for a little while, I know that it's not a gray because of the eyes. If you look at the eyes, there, they're smaller in comparison to what you would see on a gray, much larger eyes. I don't know what it was, but along with, you know, tarot and, you know, this connection to things that are multidimensional, I think that there are people that are connected, even when they make decks or even when they are teaching or talking about these things, because I find that they want to be a part of sort of the conversation. And I know that it's hard for me to sort of switch into the mode of it being easy for me to talk about this, because everything that I've been brought up to believe or have been taught by society is telling me to resist being free and open with that type of discussion. And there, you know, any experiences that I've had, I've sort of buried them. And so when you ask that question, it's kind of like you're opening me up to just saying some things that, okay, yeah, I want to say these things, but then in the back of my mind, I'm like, no, I'm not ready to say it yet. I want to focus on my channel and, you know.
I'll say them.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's funny because it's like, and I like to think maybe I don't mind saying things because, you know, was the closeted gay kid. I had to come out against everything everybody thought. You know, then I came out of another closet of reading cards and being a psychic. I mean, my family doesn't know I do this stuff. I think my mom stalked me, but she won't say anything. But they also still introduce my husband as my friend, you know, so they've got their own stuff. But, you know, first of all, I would say, and not that you have to give an answer, Kate, but what do you mean by successful? Because in my mind, you know, I have had successful conversations and connections. Can I prove any of it? Have I seen it out? Do I have written word or dialogue or anything? No, but, you know, and I think I shared this with you, Will, or maybe the interview we had a while back, but I remember laying in the bed one night, my husband's already asleep, and all of a sudden I literally could almost feel the vibration of what felt like, and in my mind, I could see 12 blue lizard type beings walk in. They turned to me like this. They were very thin. And again, I don't see it in my physical eye, but in my mind's eye, I know they're standing there. And I remember, thank goodness I'm calm. And I was like, well, this is interesting. What are y'all doing here? And they literally said, will you tell us? You're our leader. And at that moment, it was a download of, oh my gosh, they're here to protect me. And it felt like a witness protection program. And from that moment forward, except for a 3-month period, I always, you know, connect with them reverently, even though I feel like I'm their leader. And, you know, I say 4 of you will always be at the house. 4 of you will always be with me. 4 of you will always be with Fabian. And when we moved into this house, I was reaching out to them energetically and they were like, we're not around right now. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. We're in those 3 months they weren't here, our house was broken into about 2 times and maybe a 3rd time that they might have tried to. But the interesting thing was, I think I was too settle into the vibration of this location. And there are 15 cypress trees kind of horseshoeing this house. And I knew those cypress trees were something important to me. And they're very earthy, and I'm not so earthy of a person. I'm a Pisces and I'm very off planet. And once I connected with them, then it was 3 months later, I was like, oh, I can feel your energy again, you're back. And things became normal again. And then in my quiet time, just connecting to a female-ish looking entity of what you just showed me who the name they gave me was Nasia. I wrote it down somewhere, but it was very angelic looking. And, you know, and then Babat, which was a very Arcturian energy, but as I find out, they're just helping me transport. They're not anything else but a transportation from place to place. And then this very earthy being that, you know, again, the name they gave me was Re, R-E. They feel like they span this dimension all the way up to the 15th. So they feel like they're very much there. And then Eliana, a name given to me, which I looked up, and it was like one who talks to God. I'm like, where the hell does this come from? And her energy is real third, fourth dimension. And then there's Surge, which I call them that because it's like a surgeon who's kind of fourth dimension. So that energy helps me with physical stuff. Like I had an eye that was scratched and horrible. I'm walking around the lake and I tapped into Surge. I'm like, what can I do? He's like, I'm going to take care of it. You keep walking. By 3 o'clock, it'll be done. And I don't know what, but at 3 o'clock, my eye stopped hurting, and it had hurt all night long. Yeah. So, you know, in my mind, yes, these are successful. Can I prove it? No. Is it fun? Absolutely. Do I believe they're there? 100%. You know, and one day they're going to be standing there in the room with me, and I'm like, take a selfie, and I'm like, see, people, I told you it was real.
I'm glad you broke the ice there and discussed this. So yeah, so like there was and I don't know how successful or how you know, how to even describe some of the things, but there have been, okay, so sometimes, you know, if you close your eyes and sort of like visualize, sometimes, you know, things will sort of appear, and, you know, whether these are parts of you know, just your astral, you know, experience in an astral state or something like that. You know, from my experience, I don't really know how to describe it, but there have been there has been one thing that has stood out to me. I'll close my eyes and I will see it's blue, a blue being, and sometimes it'll have like sort of like a scaly skin, but other times not. But blue, it's kind of like this, kind of like almost like that. I'm trying to focus. And it'll just be right there. And I'm like, huh. And it's been like that for years. And I don't know what it is. But
I got spirit guide and went, I don't know. I mean, who knows? But I just thought, oh, spirit guide.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. But I'll keep having discussions about it, you know. And I think maybe the more I open up, the more I'm willing to discuss it, maybe the more these things will become clear, and I'll be able to articulate it a little bit better. But it's part, you know, it's part of the process, taking that step for me, you know, personally, to really, you know, get out there and talk about my experiences. And so
yeah,
to have people that, you know, are not stuck in that state of, okay, this is forbidden information that we just can't talk about. I think that's really healthy for our society. Not that I don't value logic and reasoning, but still, you get nowhere stuck in a box of logic. You have to expand beyond it with your imagination and your in a healthy sense of exploration in order to make progress, or you're stuck with the same ideas and you're stuck with the same concepts. Absolutely. And so I think anyone that's into science or any type of topic, in order to I think really build that into something that's more than what it already is, has to be willing to expand that and to think about things, you know, in a different way. So yeah,
I think we're headed in that direction. I think life is forcing us into looking at things differently, and it's looking like, you know, I just keep thinking of like sort of the civil rights stuff that has come up in the last year and a half in the US, and sort of the reckoning that's happening here. I feel like there is sort of a spiritual push that's happening that is going to ultimately flower into something that is going to be more beneficial for everyone, which is going to expand everybody's capabilities and, you know, and beliefs, I think.
Right. And I think a part of that is what we call purging. So like when the earth shifts and when the frequency and vibration of earth as a whole shifts, it has to shed a lot of things that are within the collective, and those things start to come out and purge, and we see a lot of all those things around us just kind of like vomiting out. And yeah, it has to be dealt with in order to actually remove that type of energy into to go to just different levels. So yeah,
I think another thing that's a big hot topic too is just the gender and gender fluid. And because when I'm connected to these off-planet entities, they're like gender, it's like, and I always think the World Wide Web is our human way of trying to get back to what we know. Because I can pick up my phone and in an instant talk to someone in Japan if they're at their phone. And that's that, telepathic. You just think of someone and you're communicating with them, whether they're here or light years away. And then with gender, same thing. It's like we're becoming like just non-binary, and we're heading towards that. And again, it's fighting hard against it. And I think that's why it's so important, because the beings they're like, yeah, we don't care about gender. Gender is not a thing. We can shift between that.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Every book that I've read so far, yeah, it hasn't been an issue. They've never really brought that up as a topic, or it's never been something that they focused on, or even even I don't know, it just hasn't been something as a part of the conversation, like the main part of it. But I do feel like to them it's just like weird to see us in our state, and the ideas that we have in regards to gender, in regards to race, in regards to the way our society is set up is just something that I think it's even difficult for them to watch. They're like, wow,
Yeah. And it's funny because it reminds me of when I was back in college, which was a Christian liberal arts university. One professor said, here's something for you. He loved to drop these bombs. Here's something for you to think about. The word rib, talking of taking the rib from Adam to create Eve, can often be considered womb or room.
Oh, I've
And
heard
what if man was just this, asexual hermaphrodite, where they can reproduce within themselves? Because they said it's a lonely existence. So let's create a partner. So what if we were like a lot of the aliens on this planet, where we just reproduced, but we had no need for a partner or anything? And they thought, well, let's separate them and see how this works in this experiment called Earth. I remember just my mind literally just exploding thinking of that.
Exactly. There are people who say that immaculate conception is a real thing. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there as
I believe it, just like I can fly. I know I can.
Right.
Damn it.
So I guess before we go, I remember, Kate, you were talking about when you had that past life regression, and then you were talking about your experience with that. I was thinking about that, and I was like thinking about, because we didn't talk a lot about it, but you mentioned that you felt like you were, at that time, you said you felt like you were working on some sort of plan. You were doing certain things in relation to Earth, but as a different species. So I found that interesting. Do you feel, and I wanted to ask you, did you feel like it was more something that was serving Earth, or really serving this other group?
I felt like, so when I did that past life regression hypnosis, I had this memory or experience of being an extraterrestrial on a ship working with Earth. And it wasn't, I didn't feel like it was serving Earth. I felt like it was serving maybe the alien race that I was a part of. It wasn't like, it didn't feel positive exactly. It felt like kind of a nefarious sort of agenda that I was part of. And I felt in that experience, I felt really frustrated with being a part of that. It was something that I didn't really agree with. and I wasn't on board with it. But it's kind of like when you're in a job that you kind of need and you don't really agree with any of it. You don't really like your job. It doesn't resonate with you. It's like you kind of disagree with what you're doing, but you're like, well, I need the money. There's nothing else. I'm kind of stuck here for the time being. It's kind of like that feeling and like wanting to speak up and not be a part of it, but feeling like I was not strong enough to do that, and just feeling almost kind of impotent to not be able to like do anything about it. And so that was kind of an interesting experience. And I don't know if there's anything else you want me to say or that you want to know.
No, because it stuck with me. I don't know why, but it stuck with me to like hear you explain that a little bit more. Do you remember like what, I mean, did you see anything else around, like any of these other beings around you, or were you able to see what you look like?
Yeah, I was. And I looked like almost frog-like, my hands, my fingertips were kind of bulbous on the end, kind of like a frog. I think I had webbed feet. I can't remember what my skin looked like. It's all on a recording, so I could listen to it again, but I can't quite remember the details. I don't know what my face looked like. And I do remember there was like a leader on the ship, and I remember watching him speak, and he was kind of like, he reminded me of like a villain from like a movie or something. Like he was kind of like Mr. Burnsy, kind of like from The Simpsons, kind of like that sort of character. Yeah, so that's kind of how I looked. I can't remember if my skin was like a grenishy color or what, but I just remember my body was almost like amphibian-y, kind of like not really reptilian, but like kind of like frog-like.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And I mentioned earlier when we were talking about how, when we have these different races, and like in general, some of them may have a nefarious agenda, and they may be service to self, but there are enlightened beings within that as well, that are different, that are breaking free from that sort of experience. And I remember a while back, I can't remember whose channel I was watching, but they said that they could kind of sense different star seeds and their origins and things like that. And they said that you have all these beautiful positive star seeds that come here, but there are draconian and reptilian star seeds that are here. And she said that her husband was actually a reptilian or a draconian star seed that was very protective of her, and that was by her side to be protective and to be sort of a sort of a barrier to a lot of these other types of things that would be working against her, that had a really high vibration and really positive and wonderful energy. And then also, a lot of seeds that are here are mixtures of various different groups, whether Palladian or Arcturian or Mintakan. So different things. And but I wanted to mention that before we go, because that stuck with me. And I felt like you thought of it when you were saying it. I felt like you thought, oh, it sucks that I was this nefarious type of thing. But I want you to know that it doesn't necessarily mean that you were like bad or anything like that. And so when you expanded on it like that, and you talked about how you didn't agree with it, and how that agenda was something that you were working against, I think that could be a part of the reason why you're even here, to help to bring in more positive vibration and work against that, really. So yeah.
Yes, I agree. And I felt like in that lifetime, I was actually a very positive being. I had this bright kind of energy. I wasn't this like dark force or whatever, but I was sort of like in that situation where I was kind of going against my own nature to be a part of that agenda. And I think you bring up a good point, that I feel like this lifetime I have to kind of correct. It's like I'm getting another go at it, where like I still feel like I'm in that same position as in that lifetime, where there's a lot of things happening that I don't agree with, and I feel like in some ways I'm complicit, and I'm trying to not be as I'm like, okay, how can I like turn things around? How can I kind of shift things?
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think that yeah, it's important to bring those things up, because there's a lot of people that probably could fall into those categories, and that are doing great things. And I think that for the most part, I think people people on Earth are just trying to do the best that they can. And we really do just need to get past that nefarious agenda, you know, of the things that divide us, the things that separate us, the things that push duality at us. And that's the tough part. But yeah, you know, we have kind of an, you know, we have the inside edge now. We have, you know, people that have been on both sides of the coin there. But yeah, but that's wonderful. But I think I've gone over. I kept you guys 15 minutes longer than I said I would. Sorry. but
Okay.
but
I'm actually really enjoying this conversation and don't want it to stop.
I know, I am too. We'll have to do it again. I mean, this is like the thing that I feel like I've always wanted to really discuss, along with tarot. But this is like one of the things that I felt like, you know, tarot was kind of like Kate was saying, like an introduction. But then I've always sort of been into some other topics here, but not to the extent that, you know, I am now. And I sort of built these things up as I started getting more into tarot. I started realizing that there's more to the story. There's more to the story, and I think that there are ways that we can bring some of that energy into you know, into tarot, into our lives, and bridge the spiritual and the physical, like Kate was saying. So yeah, so thank you guys.
I
Thank
would
you.
love to do this again. It would be really cool to like pick a more specific topic and then compare notes, you know, like exchange stories and compare notes on,
You know what? And
experiences around that.
yeah, and you know, and I think the best way to do it is to just go ahead and I mean, as soon as I'm done here, I'll send you guys some dates and just set it up that way we're not, you know, because I wanted to do this a while back. Yeah, I wanted to do this one a while back, and I just kept putting it off, and things kept getting in the way. But I think if I set an actual date and you know, talk to you guys right away, it'll be a lot better. So I'll send you guys a message, and with the first message I send you will just be gathering topics, and then we'll narrow it down and then go from there. But we'll set the date first, and then that'll already be set. But then the topics we'll discuss, you know, as we get closer.
Cool.
All right.
Sounds really good. I look forward to chatting with you guys again, because I feel like we could talk for hours. I feel like there's so many different places that we could take this conversation.
Exactly.
Right.
There are a handful of things I'm like, oh, I want to talk about that. But then, oh, I want to talk about that. And I'm like, we have an hour. Like,
like we could talk about why the animals are coming back more and more into reincarnation, at least in my experience, because I think they're here to help us grow too.
Oh my goodness. I'm not gonna. Something happened along those lines too that I wanted to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about anything else. I'm going to stop. Okay. So thank you guys so much. Yeah, for those people that are watching this, I'm going to put all the information in the description. So if you want to check out anyone's channel or any of the information that we talked about, I'll put it down there. So thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you guys next time when we get together.
Wait.
Yep. Go
ahead. You might want to put like a list of some of the books that we mentioned too, because and even books that we maybe didn't mention, but that are kind of like related to this topic, like that Connecting with the Arcturians book. And some of those like Starseed books.
The Almanac.
The Extraterrestrial Almanac. That's a good one.
I would read that and I would be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get to this. And then when I open up the picture, I'm like, that is exactly what I've been connecting. Like the pictures would look exactly, and I've not seen a lot of them because it's a freaking almanac.
And also,
it was amazing.
Also, just before we go, I'm going to do a review of this deck, the Mystic Martian Oracle, because it's deceptive. It says Mystic Martian Oracle, but it has so much in there. It doesn't even really have a lot of Martian stuff in there. It has like, I mean, it's definitely one of those decks that could go underrated and under the radar. So I'm going to do a review of this on my channel because it's really important. I think deck. I mean, it looks like it might be like, when you look at the box, you look at it, and you might think, oh, well, maybe that's kind of cartoony and not really, but it's a serious deck with a serious guidebook that is on the same level of that book that I suggested, the one that you bought, but it goes into some details that are really, really good. Okay. So yeah, so thank you guys so much. I'll put all that stuff in the description. Bye. Have a good day, guys.
Bye. Bye, everyone.